Hello, hello? Sorry, you can hear me now, right?
Yeah. Now it's working.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. There's like always like 5,000 settings I have to like keep changing around.
It's all good.
Yeah.
How are you doing, man? How's your day so far?
Oh, Jesus. I'm great. I'm wonderful. Best day ever. Oh my God, I can't breathe right
Nice.
now.
Good. Wow. That does sound like the best day ever. And
Okay.
hope you are feeling better over this coaching session.
I have yeah, I don't know. Sorry. The cough is real right now. I have like a breathing issue here, but I think we're good. No worries.
Cool.
Sorry, dude. Uh,
So it's okay. It's all good.
so, um, let me know how it's going. Tell me everything, dude. I'll let you take the reins for a second here. Tell me, league, race, and just kind of like what you're thinking about working on today.
Sure. Yeah. I returned to StarCraft last summer. I think I was on the pause for many years, and I think the first thing caught my attention was your B2GM series, and I was so excited about that, and I learned a lot. So I'm now like I think I made a lot of progress from Plat 1 to Diamond 1 now. Um, but my race is Protoss. I just realized I keep losing to Zerg when they like do the Roach Hydra all in me. I always get very greedy, but I always try to build as a strong army as possible. But I always lose the game around 8 to 9 minutes, and that's why this is the where I'm looking for your guidance and coaching today. Yeah, I think if I can get some thinking from the Zerg side, that'll be super fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds good. Um, how'd you want to go about doing it today? Do you want to do some replays today, or do you want to do like live stuff? What are you thinking?
If we can do half and half, maybe we can take a look at one of my past replays and see where I can do better. If we still got time, we can do a live. Like, can coach me in real time. That would be really awesome.
Sure. I mean, yeah. If we want to do both, we should probably just jump into it right away, and we can.
Okay,
You can ask questions whenever you want throughout whatever I'm saying. Like, feel free to interrupt me at any time and ask a question. It's all good.
cool.
And I would say if you want to do this, it'd probably make it easier. Just drop the replay in Discord, and I'll share my screen with you. That way, you can see my perspective, and then you can see how whenever I'm using my mouse to like describe something, you can see that too.
Cool. Yeah, let me send my the replay here.
Sure.
I think I mentioned this earlier. Like, I think the biggest confusion is how to scout Zerg's attempt. I feel like Zerg is very different than Terran and Protoss, where you can get a sense of like their intent by looking at the number of the production
Mm-hmm.
buildings. But for Zerg, you just don't. I feel like haven't got a good grasp on that. Like, I
Zerg
just
is
couldn't tell.
Zerg is heavily about what they're spinning their larva on, and Zerg should be able to keep up with you in probes if you're playing a macro build, and if they're not keeping up with you with their drones to your probe count, they're
Uh
definitely
huh.
doing something else. Like
Gotcha.
yeah, like if a Zerg player has something that's very obviously noticeable, where you have two fully saturated mineral lines, or like let's say your
Uh huh.
main's fully saturated and your natural base is like 14 probes on it and no gases yet, or something like that. And you go to the Zerg's
Yeah.
base and he's got 3 drones on the natural, or like 5 drones on the natural. There's a big discrepancy there, and that is definitely a cause for concern. Um, that's like you better have a battery if you don't have one by then, or you're probably gonna die.
That
Um,
makes sense.
yeah. Fuck, my throat, man. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Uh,
Uh,
cool.
okay, I got your replay. I see it.
Nice.
And I will share the screen with you in just a second.
Okay.
All right, I'm sharing it now, so you should be able to see it right now.
Yep.
And
Wow.
then
It's the first time I'm using the screen sharing on Discord.
it's super
It
nice,
looks good.
honestly. It's because you
Yeah.
can see my mouse now. If I'm like, so this goes there, and this is over here, and that goes over there, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can
Nice.
see the mouse movements. Just
Yeah.
makes it super easy. All right, sorry, I'm sorry, I forgot, but refresh me one more time. You said diamond, right, for this?
Yeah, this was like when I was close to Diamond 1. I think it's
Okay.
3.8K MMR.
All right. Sick.
Uh,
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Cool. Go to your perspective. Okay. So let's talk about this.
yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So this is something you can already make better for yourself. This is a very
Okay.
minor detail, but it's
Okay.
definitely worth in my opinion, making sure you don't mess this up. The first 12 seconds of the game, what you should be doing is your first of all, like obviously you have 12 probes, right? And then you have 8 patches, and patches are 4 close,
Right.
4 far. If you try to actually close stack every close patch before the time your first probe spawns, you don't want to disrupt that at all. So the point I'm making here is definitely don't pull your first probe off the middle line. Instead, rally your Nexus for your first probe away from the middle line because you can spawn his ass like right there. And then
Okay.
you can make him go down the ramp. And you're not really going to save any time based off of like, if you rally the probe out of the Nexus, you'll always be able to build the pylon before your probe arrives at its destination of building the pylon like right here or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just doesn't disrupt your middle line, and it actually gives you a little bit more money to start with, just like a tiny bit more.
Gotcha. So we're talking about the 13th probe, right? In this
Yeah,
case.
yep. The first probe
Yeah.
you build, which is probe 13, and the main biggest reason like why you want to do this, is because it doesn't actually make your pylon go down any faster. Because if you like the speed of the pylon is still fast enough to not supply block if you just use the probe that builds out of the Nexus to build the pylon.
Totally makes sense.
And
Yep.
then you ideally don't want to disrupt your mineral perfect mining if you're setting it up quickly. And like right now, you have 3 harvesters on this patch now because of this. Where like the new probe just went to the overstacked patch, and you have like 1 probe on
Right.
this far patch and 1 probe on this far patch as well. So that's
Yeah.
gonna definitely slow you down. So this is like giving you a little bit of a loss, like one. This is like the loss of like 1 turn in, because you ran from here to here when you could have just spawned here, right? And then
Yeah.
that's like 1 turn in. But now this is actually even bigger. If you don't fix this for a long time, that's a huge deal. Because if you're just going to have 16 out of 16, but you're going to have lopsided saturation for the entire game now, or until this base starts mining out, you're going to be missing out on... By the time you get to like 8 minutes, you'll probably miss out on like 100 minerals of like time of mining. And you have to like catch that up later on. So it's just going to slow your overall build down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned this from one of your past B2GM videos.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I tried many times. Haven't really like get much used to it, but I definitely work on that. But just make sure each mineral gets 2 probes only.
For sure. Because, I mean, like, right now, there's nothing else you're doing, right? So,
Yeah.
really, always just keep in mind, the easiest way to know is the middle patches, the middle mineral patches on every mineral line are always going to be overstacked. And the reason why is because the whole mineral line goes to the middle, and then they spread out afterwards. So, the middle will always get double stacks. Because by the time the first probes are, like, connecting to it, the last probes are going to then connect to it again, and they're going to stay there as well. And they're going to rotate double on that patch.
Gotcha. Yeah. Probes need to be they need to be smarter.
Yeah, man. They don't want to go to the good patches. They want to stay on the bad patches. You have
Yeah.
to definitely fix that every game. All right, and then you're making your gateway. Nicely timed gateway. Your gateway, I would recommend this though, honestly. Your timing your gateway is fine, but your location of gateway is very tucked back, I would say, and it's not the most ideal for you, in my opinion.
Okay.
The reason why is because the more you under expose your gateway, the more you're going to overexpose your core, generally speaking. Unless you're going to do some math here on like you're like, this would be the size of the gateway, or like right there would be the size of my gateway, and I will fit the core there now. But yeah, if you overexpose your gateways a little bit more, you can actually underexpose your core, and that's actually ideally what you'd want to do, because the first, like, so for instance, like your gateway right now being here, let's just say your core goes right here, and then that's going to be a super exposed core on both sides. But if you actually, if you put your gateway instead of where it is now, just put it 1 more to the right, and then now your core can be tucked back a little bit further, and then you can put a gateway next to it as well. And then it's suddenly a smaller wall the core can be hit on. And that's one of the scariest things is if a Zerg player ever... I don't feel like you're going to run into this a whole lot, but every once in a while you will run into a Zerg player who will like flood you with lings, and they could potentially... I mean, I guess the shield battery does help a lot with this, but it's just... I guess the core thing is whatever. If you have a shield battery, it kind of is whatever about overexposing the core. But one thing that is important to know too, though, is the more you you push your wall out of the inside of your base, but instead you push it a little further forward, and you have you still have the wall, but you're like a bit further out. You have more room to concave and set up behind it with whatever you're gonna do with more buildings or with your units, essentially. As long as you don't have some type of a wall that connects to, like, for instance, if you build a nexus here, and let's say you build a core right there. This is a problem for you because you actually wall that off, if that makes sense. And then the only way your army can defend itself is if you go here, and then you go all the way around to here, and you go all the way around to here. Like, you don't want to do that. So that's another reason why you want to make sure sometimes your wall is a little bit more protruding than otherwise. You gotta be careful about that. We'll see when we get there, but yeah, that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely run into that situation in the past. Like, I have another wall inside the wall, and
yeah,
the units have to go around and
for sure.
when they defend.
You definitely don't want to do that. That's like the worst setup you can have for yourself defensively. It'll just make your units just really stupid.
Yep.
Okay, so your scout... Your build looks correct, though, timing-wise. Your scout is already good. This is already telling you. I do ask a lot of people this. I'm sure, I feel like in Diamond 1, though, there's a good chance you're going to know this. And if you ever want me to, again, if you ever have questions, definitely elaborate, ask me about it, and we'll elaborate more. But already you can tell this guy's going hatch first. And it's simply because hatch first means it should be finishing around 70... it's a 70-second build time. It should be finishing around 2 minutes. And this looks pretty normal because that means that this hatchery started probably 20 seconds ago. This right here represents about 20 seconds because this is about 20 out of 70. So that's where we're getting those things. And then, yeah, it's going to be finishing at 2 minutes, which is definitely hatch first, and nothing fishy is going on. So you can already tell this is normal.
Actually, I have a question about the hatchery first. My knowledge about Zerg is pretty behind.
Yeah.
So when you say hatchery first, do you mean like 16 hatchery or just...
Yeah, so it's definitely Overlord before hatchery, and then it's going to be like a 16, maybe a 17, but most people will go 16 hatch against Protoss simply because of the pylon block bullshit that Protoss can do to Zerg. Like, a lot of Zergs are afraid of that. And you can't really, like, you'll never experience that if you Gateway Scout. You'd only experience that if you pull a probe immediately off the middle line, or if you Pylon Scout, where you make a pylon and just go to their base. But also, a Zerg player who's going to go for like a 70 hatch is probably going to take a hatchery by like 55, 56. And a Zerg player is going to take a 16 hatch is going to take a hatchery by probably like 50 flat. So this definitely looks like more like a 16 hatch. And yeah, I mean, going into his base and confirming now is definitely a good idea. You can also be annoying and mine his... You can actually, if you want to, go behind his middle line and touch his close patches. And if he doesn't fix it, you can disrupt his close patch stacking. Like, you can... so if you ever wondered why Protosses do this, if you've ever seen Protosses mine patches from the Zerg... Like, from anyone, really, but they do it to Zerg, I would say, a lot. You can actually, if you notice, they have 2 drones on this patch. You can mine it. Like, when the first drone is mining it, you mine it. And then the drone comes back while you're mining it. You don't mine it out, though. You stop halfway through, but you make the drone go, oh, someone's mining this patch. Let's go over here now, and let's triple stack this one. And it makes the drones really stupid. So you could do that. I mean, I'm not telling you have to do that, but that is something you could do if you wanted to while you're scouting.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times. Just kind of mess up my macro.
No, for sure. That's going to happen a lot, yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. That's really good to know.
Yeah, but it would just be for the purpose of, like, if you actually could disrupt their 2 stacks, their double stacked close patches, that would be the biggest thing you could do, because that would just disrupt their whole economy the entire game if they don't fix it. But but now you can definitely tell everything timing wise is normal. You see hatch gas before pool. So this now these are tendencies you should be able to watch for a player. And right now this guy is going for a gas priority before a spawning pool, but he is still going hatch first. So hatch first means he's macroing. At least he's not like rushing you with an all in like at 1 minute 30 seconds.
Right.
So you know there's a macro game that's developing now. You guys both expanded. But he's also going hatch, or sorry, he's going gas before pool, which means that if he wants to be aggressive, he totally can be. This is more of a aggressive tendency Zerg here. So the way you should read this now is this Zerg player is the kind of Zerg player that's either going to straight up fucking rush me big time in my natural once he's ready for that, or he's the kind of Zerg player that's probably going to try to deny my third base. This could still be used defensively for Zerg, but it's not as good if you're going to rush your gas for defensive purposes. It's much better to rush your gas for aggressive purposes. So,
I see.
because you have queens defensively as well, and you don't actually need the speed this ridiculously fast if you're going to play defensive. You can squeeze out a little bit, like a pool first and then like a gas second. So you still could get the gas. It's just like if the pool was like that far done and the gas was like that far done, if that makes sense. Like it would just be a little bit different. Like the pool would be further along. That would just be faster queens and faster injects, faster larva, which would be better defensively. That's like these are trade-offs you can kind of like start to read out of a player's point of view. Like you can understand their playstyle by looking at this.
Right. Can I ask a really dumb question here?
Yeah, go for it.
So I know like for Zerg the gas is only 25 minerals to build that building.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the timing wise, like gas before pool or pool before gas, how much difference does that make, like in terms of like seconds? Maybe just a couple of seconds.
So
to get a sense.
the gas before pool and pool before gas thing is probably going to be like it's like a 5-second difference or like a 4-second difference if they go pool before gas on like the two buildings usually, and like it's very close. But if they go gas before pool, it's probably going to be like a 10-second difference. So like their gas, because the gas is super cheap, and essentially the way it kind of goes is, or when I said the okay, let me say that again because it's actually not correct. The first thing I said, it's even closer than like 5 seconds. So if you go gas for a pool, you're going to be taking your gas, generally speaking, with like your 17th drone, and then you're going to wait for your 18th drone to spawn, and you're going to take your pool. And there's about like a 10-second difference there because you're doing it off of the larva as it spawns. And you're like, oh, 17th drone, take my gas. Okay, now wait. 18th drone spawn, take my pool. And it lines up with your money really well. But if you're going to go pool before gas, you're going to be probably taking your like your 17th drone off the mineral line or something when you have 200 minerals, because you're not going to be having the cost of the gas anymore, or of that at that point in time. So you'll be able to you'll be taking your pool first at 200 minerals essentially, and then really quickly right after taking your gas because it's only 25.
I see.
But it speeds up the pool timing just a little bit more overall if you go pool before gas. So another way to read this would have been unfortunately your probe is running away from this now. But another way to read this to know if this guy has aggressive tendencies or if he has macro tendencies would be how much of a priority does he have to saturate that gas? Because some people that go pool first before gas or gas first before pool, if they still do it with drones 17 and 18, they're still not disrupting their mineral line. So it's actually not that crazy one way or the other. But now if you actually stayed here and you watched, and if you were to see something like he literally green boxes 3 drones and rips them off and puts them in the gas, that's fucking aggressive. That is super aggressive. So, but there's one. So this is not super aggressive. He's only putting 1 on, and he's making more drones. Your probe's coming back for a second, but it's not. It's really like not in the area to watch this. You did see for a split second that a drone spawned and started going this way though, so you could see that that something did spawn and go in. But yeah, this is definitely not an aggressive Zerg now. Like it looks like he could, like again, it's so when he goes gas before pool, you can't just automatically assume, okay, yeah, no, he's all in now. But when he goes gas before pool, it is a tendency that leans towards him being more aggressive.
Makes sense.
And then now, if he really prioritizes mining that gas over minerals, that's fucking aggressive again. So like if someone leans multiple times, aggressive, 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 you can be like, yeah, this dude's fucking aggressive. And yeah, the way he's saturating it is not aggressive. It's like middle of the road a little bit because he did rip off one drone off the mineral line, which is something. There's a little bit of a gas priority going on there, but it's not crazy high because he's still just taking drones like one at a time off the eggs.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I feel like I already learned something. I didn't know about this nuance.
Yeah, no, these are huge things to understand. This is why you can predict what your opponent's gonna do before they do it.
Yeah, I think I pulled back the probe. I was just trying to be annoying,
Oh,
maybe attacking their base.
This is
making
fine.
some noise for, like this.
I would say definitely make sure for the future leave your probe near the gas, and if you want to be annoying as fuck for some reason, just like poke their gas. I guess I don't know. Don't really need, honestly. I would say that's not like super necessary to like. I mean, like, if you want to get in his head and you want to mess with his mind and be annoying, that's okay.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about that being a thing. But yeah, watching the gas is the huge part here, and so you get a read on how this guy's going to develop, and then after that, it's kind of just like whatever you want to do with the probe is fine. You could even send it home if you wanted to.
Cool. Totally. Yeah. We can be annoying and scouting the usage of the gas at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
And I think you scouting for a third base now is it's a little early, but the fact that you scouted for the third and came back, the concept is correct. If you watched how we developed the gas and it was a mineral priority, a third base is definitely a likely scenario now. It's a super likely scenario because if they're gonna go really crazy on the gas, they're gonna be throwing down like a roach horn or like a bane nest or something like that. But or like a layer, or they're gonna go really some type of tech gas aggressive in some way. But if they're going to go mineral priority and gas kind of like a little bit of an addition afterwards, definitely a third base is in their future, very likely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so you're going in their base again. And this scout, good scout again. Really good scout. I'm glad you already do this. Your probe needs to immediately leave, though. Like, you need to go home right now. If you don't, your probe's dead. But this scout was huge, and I'm going to ask you why it's huge. And if you don't answer it, I'll answer it for you. But why do you think this scout was huge right here? What are you thinking?
I can see the like its circling speed is under development. I think that's just means more aggressive for this opponent. And I think I may get attacked in a few minutes or maybe 60 seconds or something.
Yeah, that's good. That's, that is a good part of it. That is very correct. See, being able to tell if the pool by looking at the animation of the building, seeing if it's spawning or seeing if it's upgrading something or not is huge. So you're seeing zergling speed is underway, which is definitely a big detail to see. Another one is, does he maintain 3-on-3 out of gas after he gets speed, or does he rip off?
No, now you mention it, I just noticed that. Yeah, only one or two drones.
This right here is so what this guy did is there's 3 tendencies now that you read, and he leaned the first time in aggressive, and then he leaned 2 more times after that with number 2 and 3 in macro, like defensive. So because like the aggressive tendency was gas before pool, but then he went slowly saturating the gas, which is a defensive tendency, and then he went rip off gas, which is another defensive tendency because he's stacking minerals over gas. So now there's a third base going down real fucking soon because this is too much minerals to not do that. Like you can even though you haven't seen the third yet, you know it's coming. This is now guaranteed 100% a third base. It's not even like the only way this wouldn't be a third base is if this guy didn't know how to play the game and he was just really bad. Like if he's gonna play the thing I say in Beta Gym all the time, inefficient. Like if he does that, if he just wants to do a bad build, then yeah, he won't take a third base and he'll go mineral priority. But he's gonna do it. Like he's Diamond 1. People in Diamond 1 know what they're doing pretty much. So for like their build order essentially. So he's definitely taking a third base now. So now for your build, for something that you could do to now, how could you take this information to yourself and abuse this? You could, for instance, not make a shield battery super fast and get your tech faster. You could really chrono boost a lot now and not save one for a battery overcharge. for the first part of the game here, and like wait until you have your tech thrown down and then make your battery. Like you still need a battery eventually, just in case your opponent shifts gears and gets aggressive. But for now, again, you can just react to a macro player with macro tendencies yourself.
That makes sense. And yeah, unfortunately, this probe didn't make it.
Those probes. You can't build
Yeah, no. So that right there, I would say all you would need to do is just mineral walk your, like right-click your mineral line, like your natural or something, and then you just run through his units and hope for the best. There's really nothing else you can do. If you actually start micing your probe and running around, or if you right-click him like on the screen somewhere, he can't walk through the lings. Because even if the lings block you there, if you mineral walk through them and they'll hit you once, you could potentially still live, because a probe that runs in a straight line with the Zerglings chasing it actually generates more shields than it takes damage. Like it'll basically get hit in the ass, because a ling does run slightly faster, but it'll get hit in the ass, and then when a ling hits the probe in the ass, it doesn't keep moving while running. It's not like a phoenix. It has to stop, and then the next ling will start chasing it behind it. They'll swap spots, but by the time the probe gets hit again, it'll regenerate a little bit of shields to like take the damage again, and there's a good chance it'll get home. It takes damage almost every time it turns though, so it's best to make it run in a straight line as much as possible, and then have it go into your base. But it's not a huge deal. It's your scout probe. If it dies, that is actually acceptable. It's an acceptable loss, because the value of info it gave you is so much more value right there. It's so much more important to know these things. But yeah, anyways, let's talk about your build now. Let's see your plan here. So we talked a lot about scouting, and those are important things to understand about looking at the initial part of Zerg. It doesn't end there though. We'll definitely talk more about it as we go. But yeah, let's talk about your build now. So like right there, for instance, you prioritized a battery before making a probe. Like that's an incorrect read, as we talked about just now. Like you definitely did not need to do that. Like definitely want to make sure your probes are priority. And then also your wall is fucking fully walled. This is a full wall.
Yeah, I kind of made that mistake. I think probably 1 out of 10 games, and unfortunately, this is one of those games.
So
yeah, do you
want me to give you a quick explanation of how the easiest way you can make your wall always a good wall, and not a wall like this, where the lings can actually fit through this? I'm pretty sure. Like yeah, but your stalkers can't. So if your stalker spawns right there, it's stuck and it's gonna die, if his lings come over here now.
Yeah, it could definitely use a tip on how to always make space for
so
stalker and
the way you want to do it, though, this is the perfect way to do this, all right? If you want to know if a wall is correct or not, you need to have overlap. So like, think about like a piece of graph paper, and it's got those little boxes, right? It's like boxes up, boxes down, boxes left, boxes right. It's just a bunch of boxes. Now, sorry, I'm gonna clear off this fucking. People always fucking troll me and shit every day. We'll go back to this in a second.
Okay. It's okay.
Love you.
So
I've seen that on his stream a lot. Go ahead, sir.
You're all good. So basically, when you have a building, the way that the size of a gateway and the size of a core, these buildings are 3 by 3. They're literally like box, 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 box. Like it's literally just a 3 by 3 piece of graph paper here. Same thing with the core. Now what you want to do is you want to have, if the way that you've designed the wall on this map particularly, if you build a gateway here, it means that you're walling towards the right and the north. Like you're going northeast with your wall, essentially.
Right.
And if you're going to do that, you need to have some type of overlap with both sides of north and east overlap. So like if you have this right here, this has no overlap either way, and the way to describe it would be go to the east side of your gateway and go and make like a line here and go north from on your gateway with it, and if there's no overlap, you have no overlap now. And now, so that's the east side has no overlap with the core. And now if we go to the north side of the gateway right here, there's no overlap with the north side of the gateway either. So you have no overlap on either side, which means that this wall, this doorway, is now a corner block. It's not a overlap. It's now a corner block, and a corner block is fucked because it is going to be a large, like if you make the corner block big enough to make a stalker be able to fit through it, it's going to be really big that links can fit through it. And if you corner block directly on top of each other like this, Lings can still fit through it, and zealots and probes can still fit through this, but stalkers can't, immortals can't, archons can't. Like none of your actual bigger units with gas can fit through that. So the proper way to wall this is have overlap in one way, and then you gap it by one as well. And the way to describe it would be like this: if this core was actually to the left by one, so instead of the core being right here, if the core was right here, does that make sense? Like that?
Yeah.
You just move it to the left by one, and then now look what happens with the core. It goes through the gateway, right? The overlap goes through the gateway, and now you're having the west side of the grid, the west 3 grid spots of the core overlap with the 3 east side grid spots of the gateway in a vertical line. And now the way to fix that exactly is if you look at this line, this is exactly where the west side of the core should be and the east side of the gateway should be, and the stalker still stands where it is, which means the way to line it up is you try to build the core with, you make sure that if you're having your core, like if you're like taking your probe and you're building your core, right? You're like saying, hey, I want to build core right now, and your core is in your hand. It looks like this. You want to put your core on top of the gateway, and then try to move it down by one spot like this right here. Move it down by like one spot and have it to where it's like green, 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 like the. So again, if it's a 3x3, you just want the bottom left grid spot to be red and everything else is green. Because it's saying like core can't build there because it's in the gateway. And then you go, okay, it's perfect. Move it up one more time again. Because you move it up one because then it's directly on top of the gateway. But then you move it up one more time again, so you create room for the stalkers. So you have overlap there. So again, you're not building it wherever the fuck you want. You're building it where there's overlap, where you then create a 1 grid gap between core and gateway.
That makes sense. Yeah, basically east-west, there's 1 grid overlap. Southeast, sorry, south, north, there's no overlap.
Yeah.
But one grid.
And now let's talk about this, like now we'll reverse it really fast. And now let's say there's a pylon right here, and now you build a gateway right here. Now this suddenly is not going to be a vertical wall door. It's going to be a horizontal wall door, because this you're not going to be putting like your gateway here, and then you're not going to put like your core here to wall that wall, right? You're going to be going left to right. So if you put your gateway here, you do the same thing again, where if you have to go a little bit north with it or a little bit south with it, that's fine. But just if there was a gateway here, you would start immediately a core right next to it where there's overlap. That now this is horizontal overlap instead of vertical overlap. But then you would literally just go, okay, well, if let's say like just for a viewpoint here, let's say this line on the floor is the edge of the gateway. Okay, so you understand that line right there on the floor would be the edge of the gate. So just like a visual reference. So if I'm going to make the core here now, I wouldn't actually make the core there. I would go, all right, now the gateway and the core are touching, but now I go to the right one spot right there. And now I create a doorway where the stalker stands between the green box is the core, and this little doodad on the floor, like the floor terrain, is the gateway. And now the stalker can stand between that. And there's overlap between the two buildings, and now my stalker stands right there, and it's a perfect wall. That's how you wall. So you always do your first building. Your first building is always touching the wall like you built your gateway. This is the only thing that's incorrect about it, in my opinion, is if you could put it a little bit further forward, but you still actually don't have a full wall here. Where the pylon's connected to the core, so it still works out. But yeah, we already talked about this, so it's fine. But the big one though is you want to make sure the gateway's touching the wall itself, which it is, because now lings cannot fit through this gap. They can't. It's a wall off, which is correct. But then you want to always base your second building off of the first building by doing what we just talked about. So if your core was right here, that would actually, or like even if it was. 2 ways to wall this, okay? So if you walled it right here, it would be a little fucked because it would actually wall off your nexus to the core. So that would be a little bit hard to deal with because then you're like, well, shit. This is now creating a wall to where even though it's correct for my stalker, I have to walk here or all the way on the nexus to walk here to defend my base. So I can't do that. But one thing you could do is you could put the core, now you could actually create a horizontal overlap instead of a vertical overlap where you could make the core drop down by 1 to like where it is now, instead drop it down by 1 to right there, and now there is a horizontal overlap, and then so you can see like the horizontal overlap goes through the top of the gateway, and then you space it to the right by 1, so you would start it right there. You can make your core right there, and then you can put your final gateway above it right there, and that would be a no fucked up wall behind you, and then you'd have a stalker like in the doorway right there, and it would be perfect.
Nice. Yeah, this is super helpful.
Okay. That's huge to know that. Yeah, for real. You have to not fuck that up, because this is just your whole. You have to. The only way to fix it now is to kill your gateway, and if you kill your gateway, you never have a proper wall anyways either, because if you put the gateway like to the left by one, and now it's a massive wall, so it makes future Ling run bys later on in the game a potential threat as well. So it's definitely going to be a lot of problems.
Cool. Yeah, it's great to know that there's like a kind of deterministic way to build a wall.
Yeah.
I feel like it was when I did that before was really by luck. If I make it, it works. Otherwise, it's like this one.
Yeah. All right. So you're going adept into, okay. I would say I'm not the biggest. Okay, let me describe this. There's a couple things that are going wrong for you right now. Number one is you're not chrono boosting anymore, and you're not macroing your probes nearly as much as you want to be, as you should be. That's definitely the biggest thing that you're doing. That I would say is the biggest problem for you, because this is so much saved up chrono here that definitely should not be happening.
Right.
The only reason you would ever save chrono boost would be if you scouted aggressive tendencies, and you were like, yeah, this dude is all-inning, and then you want to chrono boost out like your first Void Ray. That's also another defensive option, right? That these are things you can do to react in certain ways that make it better for you. But if you want to do an aggressive tendency with that, that's totally fine, where you can save chrono boost for voids. That would make sense. But if you're gonna react to macro with macro, if you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I know he's macroing, and I'm gonna macro as well, definitely do not save your chrono like this, because this is what I would say you should be doing. Priority number one, chrono boosting your probes. Priority number two, still making adepts. Do not make a sentry if you're gonna play this way right now, at least. You should just make adepts, and then I think adepts are a good choice, but don't feel like you have to attack him or like scout him again, because you already know based off the tendencies what the opener is going to look like, and because I feel like what your goal is going to be is you're going to take a third base, and if you're going to take a third base, you may as well just take your third quicker and have adepts defending that, and then have your void rays and stuff like guarding this shit essentially.
Yeah. I guess my intention for creating that sentry is for scouting for sure, but good to know that like I wasn't aware of these micro.
Vinny, thank you.
So it's good to know that I'm a little over scouting here.
Yeah.
By creating that sentry.
Yeah, no, a sentry I think is still fine. A sentry is still like later on it's still fine. Not right now, and the only reason why it's not fine right now is because if you think about it, what is the sentry going to do? The sentry is going to make a hallucinated phoenix and you're fly around his base.
Right.
But if you're going Stargate opener, you should be flying a void ray around his base, like realistically. So the way you should play it out would be like you react to what his opener looks like, and you decide how quickly you need to make these voids. If he's playing super aggressive, you can chrono boost out your voids to get them faster so you don't die. If he's playing super defensive, like standard, you can be totally fine not chrono boosting your voids, but instead chrono boosting your economy, and your voids can still defend aggression that comes your way. Then, you, what's it called? You have the ability to fucking, guard your base with your void ray, which is totally fine. And then once you have like your void ray number 2 out, essentially. So let me say it like this. I don't want to make this sound fucking weird. I was starting to explain it in a weird way. Basically, what you do is void ray number 1 guards the base, so that you can just straight up make the fucking base. Like you can actually just build the nexus to build the pylon, essentially. And then adepts are there as well. And then by the time the pylon finishes, you then make a battery. And once you make the battery, then you can move out with your void rays, because adepts and battery can actually defend your nexus realistically well, while your void rays can now go be aggressive and go then scout with voids indirectly instead of using a sentry there. because that's the power of the Stargate. And then if he ever all-ins you, like if he does, like if you're in the middle of attacking his third base, and now suddenly he's like, I'm here with roaches, you can always just recall.
Right.
But yeah, so far, how you feeling about things? Things make sense, or how's it going?
Yeah, I feel learned a lot. I think this is actually more useful than we play some live games, because I've run into this a lot of games. I guess if we play again, I probably will make the same mistakes. So
Sure.
I feel great so far.
Yeah, no, I mean, understanding is huge. Like playing a live game too. A lot of times you're like, it's like pressure's on, and I'm talking to you while you're playing, and you're like, I cannot fucking focus. Like sometimes live games aren't the best. But yeah, this is so much detail about how to read a Zerg, like what you asked for, right?
Yep.
This is so much detail about how to like make you feel more confident about your decisions, to like know what you're doing. Because you're
like,
or go ahead, sorry.
I just had no awareness of the Zerg is going macro.
Oh,
So
for
I
sure,
guess
yeah.
that could explain why I was sloppy on the chrono boost.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I already
so that's huge.
a detail of that already tells me that you weren't confident is because you prioritized the battery before the probe, and you scouted a macro player, and that's a thing where it's like you should, like as soon as your scout reads like a defensive player, you should just be like literally flooring it, like hit the gas pedal to the fucking floor and be like, all right, macro, like you're just gonna like speed up your macro as fast as you can, and like for instance, I think you should already be taking your third base like right now. So
Yeah.
like you're as your first void ray is gonna spawn, you run over and it like two, like, or it could have been 3 adepts, because you have an adept that died, or sorry, it didn't die. It's right there. I was looking for it. I was like, where the fuck is it? It's right there. You have an adept in the middle of the map. You have 2 units here, which could have been 2 more adepts. So you could have the probe and like 3 adepts run to your third base, while a void ray is coming out to cover as well, and you could put a nexus down and do the exact same thing that I just described to you with your core and your gate. Do it with a pylon and the nexus. So you could be like gateway, or sorry, nexus here, and a pylon not right there, but a pylon right there. So you have that green hallway now is now between the pylon and the nexus. So you could put 2 adepts in this hallway right here. So 1 adept could be right there, 2nd adept could be right there, and a 3rd adept could be like behind it right there. And now Zerglings get really shitty damage on these adepts in this hallway, and your void ray comes over here and helps. And then if your warp gate finishes and you need more adepts, you can make more adepts to help it even further. You can also warp in the hallway if the Zerg is not in there yet as well, if he's going crazy with lings here. And it just increases the chances that your efficiency is going to be crazy high while you kill lings. Because if the lings actually have to kill the pylon as well, and you're just killing them off the pylon, you're going to kill so many more lings otherwise because of that. Like instead of your adepts killing like only 8 lings and then dying, suddenly now they're going to kill like 17 or 18 lings before they're going to die. And that might be all the lings he has. So they might not even die at all, like your adepts, that is.
Cool.
All right. And then, yeah. So we'll speed forward now a tiny bit, and now like your probe's also moving out by himself. This is scary because if there's a single ling there, you're gonna get denied.
Yeah.
And you didn't, so good. Thank God for that. Okay, now this pylon and this nexus are. I actually think that that's a gap. I don't think that's touching each other, which is. I think it is. Sometimes it's hard to tell with the fucking building. Yeah, no, it's a gap. It is. It is a gap. So you did that correct. That is good job. That is exactly how you should do it. So you did it in a way. This is perfect. I want it to not be in front of your gas and disrupting your gas. I also do not want it to be in front of your mineral line and disrupting your mineral line. Ideally, you want it to be just exactly how you did it. So fucking perfect, and it's spaced perfectly as well. And you're abusing it too.
Definitely learned this from one of your past coaching sessions. Actually, yeah, I messed up now.
That's super good. Yeah, that's great. Now, there is only one thing you're doing that could make this better. That is something I'm noticing. But it's very small detail. You're using it correct for the most part. And the detail I would say is make sure if you have more than 2 adepts or more than 1 adept, you have the front adept in the front of the door. So like you see where your yellow or your orange HP adept is? That should be adept number 1 and the rest of them should be behind it. And the reason why is because this adept in the front right here, that's the far one that's exposed, can be hit by like ling. Like he can be surrounded pretty fucking heavily, and this guy is gonna die super fast if you actually get attacked really heavily right now. But if you back up all your adepts, like to instead of where they are right now, if you back up to like right there, that's so much more. Or if you even want to micro it just a tad, and you put your 3 adepts the way they are right now, and this adept, instead of sitting where he is, he stands right there. You now fuck up this doorway as well of Ling's that way. If he tries to like move the AI around like this and go in this way, your adept stands right there and it fucks up AI again. So this adept just, you want to limit surface area of melee units essentially as much as possible is what your goal is.
Oh
Makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, your Nexus, your third, I would say is definitely a little bit late. Only because, again, this game, you could have been greedier because he's a macro player. Now, if he was aggressive, it's correct. Like a 430 Nexus is actually normal if the Zerg player is going to be aggressive. But that's because you should be chrono boosting your Void, and you shouldn't even try to take your third until you have a Void Ray. Because it's going to die otherwise. So that's like a 430 third there. That's why if you ever see a Protoss take a third base with a Void Ray, it's probably because they saw an aggressive Zerg opener. That was like,
Makes
okay,
sense.
yeah, we need to not get fucked here. But if you see a macro opener, definitely take like a 4-minute third, because there's no reason why you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, good to know that target time.
All right, and then also keep in mind too, when your pylon, the second your pylon's done, like leave your probe here, and the second the pylon's done, make a battery immediately.
Yeah, I probably haven't. I didn't do that in this game. That was definitely should have done.
Yeah. All right, and then keep making voids for now. And the more voids you make, the more aggressive you need to be, because voids actually kind of suck. And like later on, they're not the greatest. And the more of them you make, the more of them you need to pressure, because if you don't pressure, you're just making kind of like a dead weight unit that's gonna underperform now. Like it's missing its window to do damage essentially. So if here's the thing, if you don't want to be aggressive with voids, I would say 1 Stargate like you're doing is definitely correct, and then make sure you just don't make more than, like I would say 4 Void Rays maximum, like never go above 4. And then that's it. That way if the Zerg does attack you at some point, you have a decent amount to stop his shit with, and then you know you'll be able to defend all ends a little bit better, and you know, shit like that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I feel like Void Rays are typically the first type of units died in the fight. You'll see that pretty soon. Like they're not very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so you are getting aggressive now with them. Definitely want to make sure you're constantly aggressive with them though. Like for instance, just flying behind the middle line and picking off a drone. I think that's what you did earlier. Doing shit like that constantly. Like basically, you should, when you're playing aggressive with Void Rays, the way you should look at it, the way the numbers add up, and you should feel like you're maximizing your Void Rays, is if you're ever not having your Void Ray doing some damage, and you're at full you're at full shields, you should feel like something's going wrong there, and be like, okay, so now I'm not capitalizing, like you're not trading shields for drones or something like that, or overlords or a queen or whatever you're gonna kill, because if you're fully shields up and you're just not attacking, you're not maximizing what you could be doing, which is your regeneration of your shields while killing Zerg stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And like right there, I would say you should have flown Odyssey down and around into his base. Like this guy actually hasn't even made spores, nor do I think he should have. He's starting to make some now, because you don't have an oracle. But if this guy doesn't even make spores until way later, like his third base still it didn't have one until 715, and his main never made one period, and he doesn't even have creep. But this is another sign too. If you ever notice this, it's so annoying for Zerg to defend back and forth when they don't have creep here, because their queens are like super fucking slow going across this, and there's like a massive traffic jam here. So that's an abusable thing to take advantage of. But yeah, like if we look at how many drones were killed, you ended up killing 2 drones with a Void Ray opener with a guy who went queen light, kinda. Like he only has 5 queens, and yeah, it definitely could have killed more. That's all I'm saying. Like way more damage could have happened for you, and it's gonna the void rays are definitely gonna make it harder for you to macro. That is a fact. That is for sure. But as long as you have an idea about what you're going for, like you're trying to go for what looks like Archons with charge lots or something, would be my guess. And then I would say, most likely I would imagine you're going to make a Robo soon. At least I hope you do.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go for like charge lot Archon Immortal behind Void Ray. That's totally fine. If that is what you're going to do though, keep in mind you should actually be pairing the Council with the Robo. Like before, so making gateways for your third base is correct. But you should be... Also, I think there's a gap between... there is a gap here between your gateways. Don't ever do that. So...
Okay.
Because if you do that, Banelings could literally be like, alright, and we're going through, and we're going through, and we're going through, and we're going to blow up all your probes. Because, yeah, this is definitely a gap here. I can tell that is a gap in your gateways right there that Lings can fit through and Banelings can fit through.
Good catch. Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure that never happens. That is definitely gonna fuck you over massively in the future against Zergs that go for melee builds. And then another gateway above it too would be proper. And the reason why is because Nexus is the only. So this is something that a lot of persons don't know, and this is something that happens to Terran and Protoss and Zerg. But Zergs don't deal with this as much because Zergs don't wall like Protoss and Terran do. But the way I describe the wall here, where there needs to be 1 overlap to be a proper wall, a Nexus actually needs 2 overlap. It's weird, but it's only a Nexus that works like that and a command center that works like that. Because if you do a 1 overlap spot, like if you put a gateway that's 1 overlap with the Nexus, units will still spill through that and go through it and like run through the crack. So you actually need to have 2 overlap to make it not have a gap in the wall. So like for instance, what I'm saying is if right now Lings cannot fit through this, like between your gateway and your Nexus, they can't fit through that. But if you but they can fit through the gateway gap here. But if you drop this gateway down by 1 right there, and now you have a 1 overlap of gateway, because it would be like that instead of where it is now, because this is the middle of the gateway, but if you drop it down by 1, then that would be the top of the gateway, and it would be only a 1 overlap spot with the Nexus. Lings could then once again fit through that gap between the gateway and the Nexus. Unless if the battery's shoved in the Nexus though, then they couldn't fit. But if it was Banelings, the battery could die super easy. It would die in like 4 Banes, and then they could run in your middle line and just fucking kill your middle line again. So keep in mind, always have the intention when you make gateways to guard the side of the Nexus, to literally always think to yourself, I need to guard at least 50% of the Nexus with my gates. If it's like a little bit higher, that's fine. If it's slightly lower, that's not good enough. I need to go to at least halfway.
I see. Yeah, that's a really good tip.
Yeah.
Actually, Vibe, I have a...
Sure.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a question about the force base from Zerg. So I killed that force base, or I didn't kill that. I forced that to cancel it. Actually, can I ask what the intent is for the Zerg to go for fourth base? Because we know in a minute or two the Zerg will attack me with Hydra and Roche Ollie. But when I see a fourth, my thinking is, okay, this person is actually going expansion, maybe 4th and 5th. So I didn't expect like a attack in a minute or two, but actually that wasn't the case.
So if a Zerg player takes a 4th base around this time, the Zerg player can do whatever the hell he wants. He can switch gears and go massive units, or he can make some units just like you did to defend himself.
Right.
And then, because you got to realize, the Zerg player has to make something. Because if he makes nothing and you run across the map with these adepts, you just win the game. You're like, and now I'm killing all your drones, and you got to make units now anyways as I kill like 15 drones, and then you're super far behind. So he has to, and also you can do the same thing with your Void Rays and be like killing his drones and his queens with your Voids if he makes literally nothing but drones. So he has to make something to defend himself. So these could be safety units. They don't have to be aggressive units. The more he makes, the more likely it is going to be aggressive though, because there is a tipping point where it's like, okay, now you've made a lot of shit, and you're definitely not droning as much as you could be. But if a Zerg player makes a 4th base, simply put, they have the option to drone it if they want to. Otherwise, they can transfer to it while the other bases start to mine out, while they use that base for larva instead. So it is literally optional for Zerg to do whatever they want there.
I see.
But the thing is it shouldn't matter for you what they do at this point in time, because ideally the phase of the game where you need to react to a aggressive opener or a defensive opener is over by now. And the reason why it's over is because your third base timing is the final piece of that. Like, if you, for instance, if you have a Zerg player who opens up macro oriented, and you can now take a greedy to your third base, you would have taken that base over 3 minutes ago, right? Like at 4 minutes, and it's 7:15. And if the Zerg player opens up with aggressive tendencies, and now you chrono boost out just your Force Void Ray, and you take a 4:30 third instead of a 4 minute third, you still would have expanded like 2 minutes and 45 seconds ago. And that's still a long time ago. So, like, either way, a lot of stuff has happened since you made your investment into whatever you were going to do with your third base. And at this point now, it doesn't really matter if the Zerg player is going to be really aggressive or if he's going to be really macro-oriented, because now you have also increased your production by, like, for instance, guarding the side of your Nexus. You should have added on your tech as well by now. And now you can go in. Now, it's really up to you if you want to play safe macro or if you want to play all in. That is a choice that you can do. And if your opponent plays all in and you play all in, well, you both have a lot of units then, and then it really just comes down to like positioning and stuff like that, and where one player chooses to take the fight from another. But if you play safe macro, which is what you're doing essentially, if you take a fourth base and you still have that paired with all your tech and your extra production off of your good economy you have now, that is still very defendable if you're getting all in, because you also means you're not going to be fighting the Zerg way the fuck over here or like right there. You're always going to be fighting the Zerg in a defensive posture that is advantageous for you with things like a shield battery.
Yeah.
So you can, that's how you make the difference if you're playing defensive macro. You play defensively postured until you set up whatever you're trying to set up, and then once you get, if the Zerg fails an attack or if you max out, then you go to kill him.
That's awesome. Yeah. Seeing the fourth base, I guess, for Zerg doesn't, it's good to know, doesn't really mean anything.
It does
it's
not.
It's very unlike the Protoss or Terran. If I see a fourth base, it definitely means they were going to send workers to the fourth base. But in for Zerg, that's not the case.
Well, a lot of times too, the big reason why it's not the biggest factor is because your build is kind of already set in stone now. Like, the every second that goes by, the deviations you're going to make in your build mean less, because it's already set up the way you want it to be set up. Like, for instance, if you were to react to this guy now by being like, oh, he's going to be aggressive, so now I need to start chrono boosting my units, but up until this point I was playing so fucking greedy, you're probably still going to die. Or if this guy was super greedy and you were like super defensive and you were chrono boosting units the entire time, and you go, oh, he's playing greedy, he's got a fourth base and he's droning it, okay, now I'm going to take my fourth base and I'm going to chrono boost my probes now. You're already like behind in terms of the macro game, because you had already set yourself into that stage of the game anyways for the last 7 minutes. So the builds aren't going to deviate a whole lot. It's just understanding the concept of what I just said a second ago, which is if he is going to be aggressive, all you need to do to defend that is play defensive. Like, actually play defensive with positioning and battery and stuff like that, and use your buildings to your advantage. And then you'll be able to withstand it, and you'll be fine. As long as your macro is still on point, like you're making your robo, you're making your immortals, you're getting an observer out, you're making your zealots and your archons and stuff like that. Like, you'll be totally fine if that's how the game develops, and then the game will go on most likely. Obviously, there are mistakes that can happen. Like, what if the wall's fucked and he gets in your main and runs lings in there and chaos ensues, or whatever. Right. But yeah. I
think for this.
Or go ahead. Sorry.
For this game, the robo is definitely late. But also, like, I'm really curious. I always build a robo on the next to the third base.
That's
because
fine.
There's a wall on the second, or from natural. Okay, it's good to know that.
I don't care where you build it, because the intention of, like, if you built a robo at the third base, it's actually totally fine, especially if you're playing defensively postured, because the chances of this robo dying are very low. and it actually
Right.
only increases the defender's advantage of the immortals spawning into the fight if you get attacked as well, because the immortal will spawn, it walks 2 inches and it's in the fight already, as opposed to having an immortal spawn like right there, like from a robo right here, and he spawns right there and he has to run all the way down, and then you have to keep opening the door up and closing it, opening the door and closing it.
Watched your Ling open a video for Skytoss from late 2020.
So
really helped.
It's totally fine putting it your third. I would say it actually, you're kind of lucky you put it at your third this game too, because you fucked up your wall at your natural.
Yeah.
The immortals wouldn't even be able to fit then.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doug, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'll do the alerts and stuff after this. Okay, so right there, this is becoming a problem for you right now, and it's only becoming a problem for you because your macro is starting to slip here a little bit.
Right.
You can see that this guy is aggressively posturing himself off of 3 bases, which is fine. He's got a fully saturated base, fully saturated base, fully saturated base. He's not even really saturating properly. He's actually oversaturating at this point on every base with a drone or 2, and he's not even transferring drones properly, so he's really fucking inefficiently mining this base now. Which you don't know this, which doesn't matter. It's totally fine. But this is normal for you to have to deal with. But the problem that you're having when dealing with this is that you have no power to really deal with this. And the reason why that is because he's got enough Hydras. Like, you went low Void Ray count, which is fine. I don't mind that. You didn't want to play aggressive Voids that crazy. You were basically making Void Rays for the sole purpose of saying, I want to expand, and I want to make sure you can't stop that. And Voids are going to make it really hard for you to stop that. That's totally fine. Doing a little bit of harassment with your Voids is a conservative Void Ray playstyle is totally okay. The more damage you can get done with them, the better, but conservative play with 1-star gates is totally fine. But here's the problem. You don't have enough Void Rays to stop the Hydras. So your Void Rays are going to not deal with the Roaches, and your Void Rays is the only unit you have that can deal with the Roaches. Because your Stalkers are in such small number, and they don't have blink. There's no, like, these Roaches are going to run your Stalkers the fuck over, like, really hard. And then your Adepts have the same problem. Your Adepts are also in low numbers, and Adepts aren't even a great unit anyways to fight Roaches. And this guy is very Roach heavy. He's got like 80% Roaches and 20% Hydras, like very Roach heavy. So, but there still is enough Hydras to kill your Voids. So he can still distract and kill your Voids with the little Hydras that he has, because you have a little bit of Void. But his Roaches are more than enough to run over your Adept Stalker and your 1 Archon. Right. So you just physically don't have enough Immortals here, you just never made the Robo. If you had like 3 Immortals out right now, this would not be a problem for you. And then if you had buffered that with now more Archons, and also now you're going for more Zealots, because the trade-off is you stop making Stalker, and now all the X-Stalker gas goes into Archon gas, and then you just buffer that with Zealots. If your army was like, let's say 2 or 3 Archons, like it is now, add in like 3 more Immortals to it, and then add in like 10 charge lots, or like 12 charge lots, you would not have a problem with this at all. You would be running, like it would be the reverse. He'd be running away from you as you just fucking destroy him, and your 4th base is still alive. So this is a macro problem for you. This is, like, at this point in the game now, you just never set this up, and this is now going to fuck you over.
Yeah, I think clearly this is, my macro is way from good in this game. But also, like, kind of connect to what we talked about earlier. Definitely, I didn't read the game very well in the beginning. That kind of affect how I focus on the macro. Yeah. So it's all connected.
This would be a moment too where I would say, if this guy is really aggressive like this, and you're like, okay, yeah, no, he's getting really, like, I'm trying to set up my 4th base, and he's clearly really up in my face, and he's flooding me right now with units. This would be a moment where I would say, you should already have like 2 or 3 Immortals, and just start chrono boosting your Robo now. You don't have to chrono boost every gateway in your Stargate and all these buildings. Just start chrono boosting your Robo. Chrono boost it like 4 times in a row until and chrono boost it until you smash his fucking army and he actually takes the fight. Because every second that goes by from now on, if he keeps making mass Roaches and Hydras, and you just keep chrono boosting out Immortals while adding on Archons and Zealots to it, the chances of you running him over are very high. Because if every time you guys fight, if he loses a big chunk of Roaches and you lose a big chunk of Zealots, but then your Archons and your Immortals disengage, and he disengages from you, and you guys reset and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. If you get to a point where you get to like 5 or 6 Immortals, and you have like 6 Archons with it too, you're going to run him over so fucking hard. Because the whole point about Protoss here is not about your gateway units staying alive. It's about building up your Archon count and your Immortal count, and letting your gateway units buffer for that and dying. And like whenever the trades have to happen, you want the trades to be zealots and not the expensive power units that are something you need to keep alive. But if you were, let's say he fights you, and let's say he resets your Immortal count 3 times in a row, well, now you have a fucking problem, because that's actually going to kill you.
Yeah, that's great to know. Also, can you like take a look at my the number of my production buildings? Is that like a good number of the building to defend this? I have like
honestly, you have plenty.
11
So
gateways.
I would say you actually have more than enough. You have more than you need. And the reason why I would say that is because you actually could have made all 4 of these gateways, like here, 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 and here, after you made this Nexus first. You could have actually taken your Nexus at your natural off of 2 gateways and 3 gateways, and a Robo and a Stargate, and then your Council and like a Forge. I think double Forge, by the way, against Zerg is incorrect. Don't do that anymore. This is better against Terran, and it's honestly not even good against Protoss. I think this is like an only Terran thing. And the reason why is because it's too expensive to do this against Zerg and Protoss, and you're not going to get as much value out of it as you would like. I would like, it's just not really as much worth it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it again, going double Robo or double Forge against Zerg. The only way, let me explain why this would make sense to go double Forge against Zerg. You better never fucking get off of Gateway. Like, to go double Forge against Zerg, you better be doing like a 2-2 timing, or maybe like a 3-3 timing, where you have like 16 gates or like 14 gates and like maybe like 2 Robos. Like you're like, if you're gonna go to a 4th base is what I mean. If you're gonna stay on 3 bases, maybe like 8 to 10 gates and 1 Robo, and you're gonna do like a 2-2 timing, and you're gonna go fucking like as aggressive as possible. And you're also probably gonna pair it with like maybe a Blink Stalker build or like a Sentry build with force fields, like something with control. Like, it makes sense to do a build like that. If you're gonna be all up in his face like fucking crazy hard, that makes sense then. But if you're gonna do a build that's like, I'm eventually gonna go Sky Toss, and it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because
I think my plans typically fall back to Sky Toss if I can survive that 8 minutes attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, because definitely probably the second, both forges never got used in this.
Yeah, game. You're not using either one as well, yeah. But just make 1 forge and get weapon upgrades, and you're fine, honestly.
Yep.
You don't need to get double here. Double is more appropriate when you're like in Platinum League and people don't really know how to attack properly, because the micro is not a factor there. And that's why I told people to do it back then. And it's like, get shield upgrades, and it makes Ling run by is easy to deal with, and Zerg is harder to now attack your base. But for you now in Diamond 1, where you're actually paying attention to the whole game, and you're almost masters, right? And you need to like play the game, the tempo of the game. Double Forge is gonna slow you down with your transitions like crazy. And it's not a bad build, it's just a specific build that needs to be an aggressive gateway style with Robo support. And if it's not that, which it's clear it's not, you're not doing that, it's not worth it.
Yeah. It probably could have gotten 3 more Dallas if I didn't get that Forge. And
well, I mean, it's just the gas is the big one. Like, you're tying up your gas, and you could be making more use of your gas. But the problem you're having as well is you're not making use of your resources at all, as much as you should be. So that's why you're also having a problem with this. And it's things like you're at 9 minutes almost, and you still haven't made your first Immortal yet.
Yeah, this is the Immortal is really late this game.
Yeah, and that's why this is such a problem for you, because this is such a roach-heavy army. This is right now, like, look at the army. He's got 31 roaches and 15 hydras. If you had Immortals right now, every time he tries to engage you, a roach dies, roach dies, roach dies, roach dies. Every like second, a roach would be dying.
Yeah, I think I got the impression that Archon's really good against Zerg, which it is, but also like I feel against the roach-heavy army, Immortal could be super helpful as well.
Immortal, 100%. Immortal is your best unit against his army that he has right now. And even if you were to add in like lurkers to this, still once again, Immortal's the best unit you can make against this right now.
Cool.
The only unit you could make, which you don't have access to yet, that could be even better than an immortal, would be if you made a disruptor. But you don't have. You don't even have. You could use disruptors against this. It would be if you got like a massive shot right there in the middle of that. That'd be juicy. But you don't even need to. If you just because the thing is if you have if you get to a point where you have 3 immortals, you are legit killing a roach every second. And if we were to go back and add up how many times this guy pushed into you and pushed away and pushed into you and pushed away and pushed into you and pushed away, it's probably been like 30 seconds of that. And imagine if you killed 30 roaches. Like it's like it basically and you gotta also realize every roach that does die is less DPS that he has, which means it's less of your army that's gonna die. So it's actually a humongous deal where if he has only like 17 roaches right now instead of 30 because that's how much you've killed up to this point, you might actually have like 10 stalkers, 5 adepts, and 14 zealots instead of what you have, which is 8, 3, and 8. So because like he has less DPS going out because he's got more of his units have died as well. So less of your units die every time he throws a volley at you.
Yeah. And now, yeah, this person flagged me. I think that was pretty good concave for that.
Yeah, well, you just don't have enough. You haven't had this has been a momentum swing for him for a while now, because his first attack wasn't enough to kill you, even though you had no immortals. But now you have a immortal, and now his attack is enough to kill you. And the reason why is because he's almost maxed out now. Like, you haven't been throttling his supply at all while he's been super aggressive, because you haven't been punishing him whenever he engages you. All that's really happening is he's punishing you and then disengaging, and then punishing you and disengaging. And the unit you could make that would punish him, you actually do have access to 2 of them right now. We're not talking about a disruptor anymore. The only units you could be making to punish him would be a sentry, which I don't even think you need to make. Because if you just make immortals, which is the other one, you would punish him indirectly by every time he engages you to poke a unit, you poke units off of him too. And then your immortal count grows, that's actually scary as fuck for Zerg, because if you guys are growing an immortal count and a roach count at the same pace, immortal count is going to win in the end, because immortals they scale better than roaches. Like, two roaches and 1 immortal are the same supply. And 1 immortal versus 2 roaches is not even a fair fight. That's like an immortal would just shit stomp both of them and then walk past it and be like, what happened? I killed 2 roaches? I didn't realize, because they just died so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think it's good. I have learned more about the importance of immortal. If you see, I definitely prioritize Archons in this game, but going forward, I will definitely add more immortals for my third base defense.
Yeah, no, immortals are massive, dude, for sure. Like, Archons are really good too, but you definitely want to make sure the immortals are in there, because their damage output is actually going to be higher than the Archon in that particular situation when you're fighting a bunch of roaches. Roaches, like, now if you're fighting a bunch of Zerglings, that's a different story. Now suddenly Archons are going to be better than immortals, but both are still good. You should still be making both regardless every single game. But yeah, Archons would scale better than immortals would. Immortals would just buffer the damage a little bit more then.
Cool.
But just make sure you're making your robo. Like, as soon as your third base is starting to get set up, make your robo. Like, make it pretty fucking quick, because you're going to be making your council also pretty quick there too. And that's when you can switch into Charge Lot Archon Immortal, and then, yeah, you'll be able to actually have immortals and shit like that. And that's why you shouldn't even care, because if he's aggressive, you just start chrono boosting your immortals now, and then you'll be like, cool, I can now have a lot of immortals to defend this, and I'm good to go. And then if you punish him and push him back, you take your 4th base, you start going into Sky Toss, is what you start like getting ready to transition to go to Sky Toss while making like your first army maxed out on Immortal Charge Lot Archon. And then when your 4th base is done, you can add in more gateways to like cover it, just like you covered your 3rd and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yo, Beastie, thanks for the raid, man. Much love.
That's super helpful. I guess my last question for today is actually this is the second version of my defense strategy. The first version I went to High Templar and the Storm. Would you recommend that, like, against this Hydra Roach Ollie?
Honestly, you don't even need it. Like, you can. I'm not gonna say it's bad. Storm is never a bad idea when your opponent's massing units, like, ever. And if you're able to micro it a little bit, and you're Diamond 1, so I think you can. I think you can handle throwing in some Templars and throwing out like 1 or 2 storms or whatever on top of his army.
Uh-huh.
But I don't want you to think that that is the only way that you're gonna not die there. Like if you just had clean macro with good Immortal Archon Zealot production, you would have also not died.
Yep. Cool. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
This is super thorough. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Vibe, I always thank you. Did you study engineering in the school? I really feel like I work in the tech industry, but I really feel like you have the engineering mindset for sure.
I did not, but I always thought that if I didn't do something like I'm doing now, I probably would have pursued something like that instead, honestly.
Yeah, I really
yeah.
Really appreciate your coaching session, all the B2GM series. They're super helpful.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you doing a lesson, and much love and good luck in the future games against Zerg. I have nothing but confidence for you because the things that we cleaned up 100%, they're very fixable for you, and if you fix them, I feel like you're gonna have a ton of success.
Cool.
Yeah, it's gonna make Zerg's life a lot harder, and then it just comes down to, if you want my final tip that we didn't get to talk about because your game didn't get that far, but when you do a Skytoss transition against Zerg, make sure you don't do the classic problem that most people have when they do that, which is don't feel like you have to end the game when your army is split in a hybrid kind of a composition where it's like 30%, 40% Skytoss and like 60 or 70% ground. Instead, what you'd want to do is you want to slowly try to like maybe throw some zealots over the top side of the map, throw some zealots to the bottom side of the map, like just trade your army off little by little by little on the ground and replace it into air, and don't actually push with your air army until you have like 80% air, and now you have like a little bit of Archons on the ground and maybe even like 2 Immortals or like 3 Immortals covering 2. You really don't need Immortals on the ground though unless he's going for like Ultras or something, but yeah. If you have mostly air, then you actually push, you won't throw the game away. But a lot of people tend to do that shit where they're like, I have 3 carriers, let's push. And you're like, okay, no. This is not the time to push. You want to build that shit up a bit more because it scales exponentially in power. But yeah, do that too, and you'll have so much success against Zerg.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely saw that in your most recent B2GM. It was really eye-opening. I saw you throw away Xylos.
It's great. Yeah.
Untrace, that was
I mean, you're super perceptive too. Like a lot of shit you're doing in the game too is definitely really like you're doing it well. That's why like some of the mistakes I did see, if you fix those too, the other things you already do know, you'll clean up everything so much more, and yeah, you'll have a good time against Zerg for sure.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, good luck. Take it easy, and thank you again, man.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike.
All right.
Talk to you next time.
All right. See you, man.
See ya.
All right, guys. That has been a coaching lesson with our boy SSB. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next coaching lesson or the next video, whatever you want to watch, whatever it might be. And until then, good luck in your own games, and peace, guys. Take it easy.